This was, before the debate, there was a line that people said Donald Trump has to walk. He has to have Joe Biden not do that great, but he didn't want to destroy Joe Biden because that means Joe Biden would get out of the race. But Donald Trump today has the best of all worlds. Joe Biden was destroyed in the debate, but Joe Biden is going to stay in the race. That is great for Donald Trump, isn't it?
It seems to be great for Donald Trump, absolutely. And you look at these polls, I'm not sure what data the Biden campaign is looking at. I saw them on the news shows this weekend. I saw some of the data that they released. It's absolutely inconsistent with the data that we've seen, and also completely inconsistent with the focus groups we held here at Fox watching the debate live. We had 5 swing voters in the audience. 4 of them decided on Donald Trump that night. 1 of them did go to Joe Biden because he was reminded by Donald Trump that he didn't like Donald Trump. The rest of the voters were solidly on Donald Trump's side. Joe Biden really didn't win anything. In fact, he lost a lot of traction, and not because of policies, because people are just so concerned about his ability to lead for the next 4 years.
A liberal texted me this morning who voted for Joe Biden against President Trump almost 4 years ago, and said, if I saw Joe Biden driving a car down the road, I would be very concerned about who he might harm with that car. What about the American people? He's driving, well, he's actually not driving this car. We don't know who's running the nation. And 77% of people told AP in a poll last year that Joe Biden was too old to be effective. And now tonight, we have another poll that shows 41% of Democrats think the party should replace Joe Biden. But the president's allies still think he's the only one who can take on Donald Trump. Listen.
We're basically saying the president is the only person out there who's ever beaten Donald Trump, and he will do it again. You know, and we're all going to work together on this.
I think he's the only Democrat who can beat Donald Trump.
Absolutely not. There's one person in this country that has defeated Donald Trump, and his name is Joe Biden. And so the one person that can beat Donald Trump again is a person that already beat him.
And despite what his campaign or other Democrats are saying, old Joe doesn't think that's true, or at least that's what he used to think. Listen.
President, do you think there is any Democrat who could defeat Donald Trump other than you?
Probably 50 of them.
You do believe that there are?
I'm not the only one to defeat him, but I will defeat him.
And we showed Anita Dunn in that clip. Well, that's who his family is now throwing under the bus. They're all, again, it's a circular firing squad of finger pointing. And his family, they are digging in. They're not getting out.
They are not getting out. And I think, you know, look, the data suggests that they're right. I mean, when you look at the data on the bench of the Democrats right now, there's not one that polls better than Joe Biden does today. And that's really saying something. This is a man who most people who watched the debate said that they didn't feel that he was cognitively fit to run for office. And yet here he is, and he is the one that's polling better than anybody else. He's polling better than Gavin Newsom. He's polling better than Whitmer. He's polling better than anybody that's behind him. And that is a really big issue for the Democrats. I think it makes them very afraid to replace him at this point. And they have done exactly what they did in 2020, which is they've circled their wagons behind their one candidate, and they're getting on message. Everybody's getting on board. And it seems to be the direction they're going.
You know, but it becomes groupthink because, again, they all start saying the same thing, the same message. Joe's the only one that, you know, can beat Donald Trump. You know, he's really sharp in these, the middle part of the day. He just didn't have a good night. That night he was over-prepped is the language they'll all use. The problem is, in early November after the election, they're all going to come out and go, no doubt Joe was going to lose. We saw that he was cognitively declining. Whose idea was it to keep this guy in the race? They're gonna eat their messaging that they're making right now and not making a transition in this race.
I would expect that they will be, because I don't see any way out of it. We're not going to. It wasn't just one night. The American people don't believe that it's just one night. He is really in a very, very difficult situation because there's almost no way that he can disprove what people saw, because they didn't just see it on debate night. They've seen it for weeks and months before this. And we were told that it was cheap fakes. We were told that the videos were edited the wrong way. We were told all of this stuff wasn't true. Now we watched for 90 minutes for ourselves, and people have drawn their own conclusions. predictions. And when you look at the numbers that are coming out are really bad for Joe Biden. But I expect them to be worse as the week goes on because we haven't even seen the beginning of the polls that come in to look at the swing states, for example. We haven't seen all of the polling that's going to come in, to look at the impact
When
nationwide.
will we get those polls? When do we see the swing state polling?
I would expect to see them in the next two or so days. But I think there is going to be a big impact. And we don't see this kind of impact on debates. Debates usually don't have more than a 2 or 3 point poll on the polls. I expect to see more than that.
Nate Silver, Donald Trump had a 66% chance of winning the Electoral College last week. Joe Biden, if he loses Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, where he already trailed badly, he would need to win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, not just one of them, all 3 of them to win. And buried in Gretchen Whitmer, I'm not putting my name out there. She said he's losing Michigan after that debate. Boom, shakalaka.
Yeah, well, also, let's be clear on Michigan. I think that's a really interesting point because Donald Trump is ahead by almost 2 points in the average of the Michigan polls, and that's before the impact of the debate even came in. At this very same time in 2020, Joe Biden was ahead by 10 points in the polls, and he ended up winning by 3. We never saw Donald Trump perform as well as he is right now, and we haven't even begun to see the impact yet. I think it's going to be really hard for him to win Michigan. It's really hard for him to win Pennsylvania. It's really hard for him to win Wisconsin. I don't think that there's a path at this point. I really don't. Anything can happen, but at this point, I don't see a path.
Americans normally have a short memory. They will have a long memory on Joe Biden's cognitive ability and performance. Here, Lee Carter, always wonderful to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know why? Because they've lied to the American people for 3.5 years about everything, including what they see, hear, and feel.
Here, I'm with you.
Sorry.
No more lying.
Talking too
She's
much.
Angry today, and rightfully so. All
No,
right.
no. Every day.
All right, the Supreme Court handing down